action.
Hello, this is Chris Jewett from Extreme Flight RC. Welcome to Build Video 5. Today we're going to finish up the build video series on the 104 by installing the graphics. Let's get started. Before we actually begin installing the graphics, we're going to clean up the covering one more time, take out any wrinkles with a heat gun, and seal the edges with an iron. After we've done that, we're going to clean the entire aircraft with Windex. Ultra Coat covering has a memory. After you've heated it and shrank it 3 or 4 times, it will eventually stop getting loose. Vinyl graphics come in 3 layers. The top layer is the masking layer, and the bottom layer is the paper layer that peels off. The masking layer and the vinyl actually stay together during the application. You're going to want to use a very sharp, clean pair of scissors to separate the vinyl graphics from the backing and get them ready to put on. We're going to use a diagram from B&E Graphics website to help us figure out where each graphic goes as we do the installation. To begin the application process, you're going to want to spray the sticky side of the graphic and the surface to put the graphic on with Rapid Tack vinyl application fluid. You could use soapy water or Windex, but I find that Rapid Tack works the best. The reason we use Rapid Tack is so that you can slide the graphic around after you've put it on the surface to adjust it. After you've put it on and you're happy with where it is, use a squeegee to squeegee out the fluid from underneath the graphic. I'm using a foam board here. It's Creatology rubberized foam. It's semi-hard, which makes it work good for a squeegee, but it's not so hard that it'll dig into balsa and scrape it up. It's important to make sure that your decals are oriented properly. In this case, each of those stars has a specific direction to point, and that they're spaced properly. I know that they're 90 millimeters apart for this application. You can see here that with the Rapid Tack underneath the decal, you can move it around to get it exactly where you want it before you stick it down. When I'm doing a graphics install, I typically like to do all the graphics on one side of the fuselage or one side of the wing, let them dry for about 20 minutes, and then go back and remove the masking and finish up. Another note here is when you're putting graphics on the fin like I'm doing here, you'll be able to see them from both sides, so you need to make sure that the stars line up and that the spacing is exact, so when somebody's looking from the front of the aircraft, the graphic looks like it's in the right spot. Okay, so the graphics have been drying for about 20 minutes. I'm going to come back with the squeegee one more time, make sure that there's no liquid underneath the graphic, and I'm going to squeegee from the center out towards the masking tape. Then I'm going to use the paper towel to come back and soak up any liquid that might have come out with that squeegee pass. And then we're going to peel up the masking. When you're peeling up the masking, you want to pull the masking straight back over the decal. Push the masking down flat against the decal and roll it off, especially with these stars where there's small points that you could accidentally roll up. Even though we've let this dry for 20 minutes, the liquid underneath the graphic probably won't really be dry for 24 to 48 hours, so you could easily pull the graphic off if you're not careful. The last steps will be to use a paper towel to clean up any liquid that might have been under the masking, and then go over it one more time with the squeegee to make sure that there's no air bubbles underneath the star. Continue this process until you've taken the masking tape off all the graphics on one side of the airplane. It's tough to see, but there's a couple bubbles underneath the R in this graphic. So what I'm going to do is use the squeegee to work those bubbles towards the edge. You should be able to get out all of the bubbles. If you let the graphics dry for too long before you peel them, it's harder to get the bubbles out. One technique for doing complicated graphics like these stars is to put arrows on the masking tape to show the orientation on the airplane. It's also a good idea to lay out all the graphics on a piece before you actually start sticking them down. With these stars, you can kind of visualize that there's a chevron in one orientation of the star, but not in the other orientations of the star. This really helps in getting them to point in the right direction. In this case, that chevron is pointing down throughout the whole wing. When you're putting a decal on the airplane, you want to make sure that it is aligned with something on the airplane. If you look at the stars, you can see that they're going down the line between the red and the white covering. And on this decal that I'm putting on the wing tip, I'm making sure that it's lined up with the leading edge of the wing. This is a technique I've seen some people use when they're trying to get their airplane ready for an event the next day. Just use low heat if you do choose to do this. When you're peeling the masking off of a curved surface like the wing here, it's important that you lay the masking tape back against the shape of the wing and roll it off. If you were to pull up or to pull back at like a 45-degree angle, it would be very easy to lift the graphics off of the surface as you're taking the masking off. The more curved the surface is, the more careful you have to be with doing that technique. A quality graphics package will have color matching and style matching graphics for each part of the airplane, like we see here. When you're putting graphics on the cowling, you want to make sure that you do not push too hard to dent or crack the cowling. When you're putting a decal in open space, like I'm doing with this DA120 sticker, you want to make sure that it lines up with something on the aircraft to give it a visual cue that makes it look straight. Here I'm lining it up with the hatch cover. You can put vinyl graphics on an extremely curved surface like this wheel pan. One of the tricks is not to use as much vinyl application fluid, and the other is to put it on the flattest part of the piece first and then roll it on to the most curved piece. One of the reasons you want to use little application fluid is so that it'll actually stick down as you go over the curved piece. You're going to want to kind of roll it into position with your thumb, and if there are any creases, you want to make sure that it goes into the masking tape part and not the graphic part. However, after you peel off the masking, if there are any creases in the graphic itself, you'll be able to lift them off and re-stick them down. In this case, I had a crease in the G, so I'm just going to lift it off of the wheel pant while it's still wet and then stick it back down without the crease. After the graphics have dried for about 24 hours or more, you want to go back and wax the entire aircraft with a good UV protectant wax, like Eagle One Nano Wax that I'm using here. You want a very soft terry cloth towel to buff the airplane with, and you're probably going to want to wax it twice to make sure you have a good coverage over the whole airplane. We hope you all have enjoyed this build series and found it useful. We look forward to seeing you at the next fly-in. Happy flying!